Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Pow, and today I'm doing week 13 of my 2021 reads. This week I read an absolutely amazing book, but other than that, it was pretty much a slump reading week. I did pause 2 books and DNF another one. The book that I finished this week was such a treat. It was The Goblin Emperor by Katherine Addison. This is a book that I have been really wanting to read for a couple of years. I've heard great things about it on BookTube. Sush loved it and said I would love it, and so I'd been very much wanting to get to this, but it doesn't really fit in with any of my priorities and goals. However, this week I was in such a reading slump that I decided to treat myself and read this book, and I'm so glad that I did because it was just as good as everybody says it is. This is a steampunk, low fantasy of manners that is filled with court intrigue. It's very, very intricate and I absolutely loved it. Very atmospheric, very slow, very character driven. So this is the story of Maya, who is the 4th and very unfavored half-goblin son of the elf emperor. And he unexpectedly becomes emperor when his father and older brothers all die in an airship crash. And now he's thrust into this position of prominence as the emperor and has to deal with all of the political intrigue around him, trying to figure out who to trust and who's plotting against him and just survive all of that. It is so wonderful. I loved Maya as a character. He's absolutely the sweetest, and just the way that this book completely gripped me was amazing. I was so drawn into the world. I thoroughly loved this book, and I'll have a standalone review for it up in a week or so. So if you want more details, check that out, but I cannot wait to read this book, especially because the companion novel, The Witness for the Dead, is coming out in June. So I really am excited to read that now because it follows one of the side characters from this novel. So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend it for anybody who likes those slow political intrigue type of stories. Now moving on to some paused books. These are books that basically my library demanded back, and so I had to give them back even though I wasn't done, and I'm not really in the mood to immediately try to check them out again because, again, I'm in a little bit of a reading slump. So the first of these is Celestial Bodies by Jokha Alharthi, translated by Marilyn. So this is an Omani story about a family, in particular 3 women, in the 1960s and the decades beyond, going through a lot of transitions as Oman really changed culturally and socially. So this is very much literary fiction. It was a little, I don't know what to say, a little hard for me to grasp. Sometimes it was very stream of consciousness, really intriguing in a lot of ways, and a lot of very fascinating things about the social and cultural dynamics of the women and their family members. So I'm interested in continuing this, but I do not have the brain power for it right now. So I got through 18% of this. It's not a long book, and I would definitely like to finish it at some point, just not right now. Another book that I had to pause, but I for sure will come back to, is The Map of Salt and Stars by Zeyn Joukhadar. This is an interesting sort of historical and semi-contemporary fiction. It has 2 timelines, one that follows a girl in 2011 who is Syrian American and ends up going back to Syria with her family right as Syria descends into civil war, and then is later displaced. It also follows a past history kind of fable or story of a girl who in the, I think, 14th century is trying to become a map maker, and so has to travel around the Mediterranean, really having adventures and mapping the area. So I loved the beginning of this book, absolutely was so enthralled by it. The writing is so beautiful, it's very atmospheric, it's also very melancholy and sort of just this beautiful sadness almost. So I really loved the beginning of this book, but also I think it's going to take just being in the right mood and able to handle that kind of melancholy for me to get as much out of it as I think this book has to offer. So I got through 11%, and I for sure want to continue this book, just not in the mood that I'm in right now because I don't want to do it the injustice of reading it when I'm not in the right mood, because I think I'm going to love this. And then I did DNF one book this week, which was An Unseen Attraction by KJ Charles. I have heard really good things about KJ Charles from Rachel at Kalanadi, who I will link below. And this book in particular was recommended in one of Talia Hibbert's blogs. Talia Hibbert's a romance author that I like quite a lot. And so I thought, oh, hey, this sounds interesting. I'll pick it up. It is a male-male historical romance and maybe also somewhat of a mystery. I'm not entirely positive. I didn't get that far in. I got 18% in, and I had to DNF it, even though I very much loved the writing style and the romance, because it was just a little bit too graphic for me. So basically, this is the story about a guy who runs a boarding house, and he is Indian of descent, I think, and then one of his boarders who is a taxidermist. And I really loved the interaction between them. It was very sweet. The boarding house runner, the guy who's Indian, I think he's supposed to be maybe on the autism spectrum, just the way he struggles with social interactions. And I really loved the way that the two of them interacted, and I loved the setting. So it was really, really very much something that I was enjoying. But the job of the other character, taxidermy, was so much a part of this story, and I was struggling with the descriptions of taxidermy. It just really got under my skin. It kind of grossed me out. So I definitely want to try other things by KJ Charles, but I think this book, I'm still remembering scenes from that and being grossed out. So I think this book is just not going to work for me. So I have DNF'd it, but I want to try other things by KJ Charles. Okay, so that's everything that I read, paused, and DNF'd for this week. I do have content warnings down in the description box below. If you guys have read any of these, if you have any thoughts, any recommendations, anything at all, go ahead and leave me a comment down below.